Sighting of aliens have been suggested by means of lots of human beings over the closing 100 years from exclusive components of the world. As per collective research of all these reports, it is being calculated that there are many as 82 distinct sorts of aliens that are being considered on Earth. The extensive number of reports and testimonies concerning different ET races indicates that the motivations and activities of ET races vary greatly, and an idea of these motivations can be distilled from close examination of these reports and testimonies. The most compelling testimonies on the different ET races come from the whistleblowers, such as Sergeant Stone, who served for long periods in the military, and corporations participating in the black projects, and also contactees who have had the direct physical contact with the ET and communicated with them. This includes both contactees in the classic sense of those who have voluntarily interacted with ET races and abductees who have been involuntarily incorporated into ET programs. Here is a short description about the pinnacle 10 extraordinary kinds of aliens that have been noticed on Earth. Type 1. Zeta Reticulans or Grey Aliens. The ET races in this group consist of the ubiquitous Greys from the megastar gadget Zeta Reticulan and the Orion constellation, who are described in most of the abduction lookup and who determine prominently in reviews of UFO crashes. Robert Dean Blanketed the Greys as an ET described in NATO's assessment called Philip Corso, who served in the Eisenhower administration and later headed the Foreign Technology Desk at the US Army's Research and Development Department, claims to have witnessed the physique of a useless Grey retrieved from Roswell in 1947. What he noticed and shaped the traditional description of a 4 feet tall ET with a giant head, giant black almond-fashioned eyes, skinny torso and spindly hands and legs. A basic description is via Travis Walton, who had abduction trip with the Greys. They have been very short, shorter than 5 feet, and they had very giant bald heads, no hair. Their heads had been domed, very large. They are regarded like fetuses. They had no eyebrows, no eyelashes. They had very giant eyes, considerable eyes, nearly all brown, besides a lot white in them. The creepiest aspect about them had been these eyes. Oh man, these eyes, they simply stared through me. Prominent UFO abduction researchers such as Dr. David Jacobs, Bud Hopkins and the late Dr. Carla Turner have supplied unique case research of the abusive components of a UFO abduction. These researchers discovered worrying proof of abusive remedy of humans taken into UFO crafts. A female being involuntarily subjected to a genetic application aimed at producing human ET hybrids, and of grown-up hybrids performing humiliating sexual things to do on girl abductees. Many researchers agree that the Greys are deeply concerned in growing a hybrid human-Grey race that would be appropriate car for the subsequent step in human evolution. Researchers such as Jacobs trust this is a purpose of alarm and poses a direct danger to human sovereignty. According to Cole Corso, the Greys had been concerned in agreements with the Eisenhower administration that Navy officers noticed as a structure of negotiated surrender, the place the Greys want permission for abducting civilians and expanding their organic program. Clifford Stone distinguishes between gods and the bods, extraterrestrials, and refers to the Greys as section of the bad guys committing egregious abductions, and that the US authorities is undecided how to expose this to the frequent public. The exact guys, ETs, are, well, I like to refer to them as being nomadic. What you are speaking about the non-intervention with different smart existent types in a popular law. The nomadics go alongside with that. The Greys violated the popular laws. I suppose there is the effort for the exact guys to make contact with the human beings inside our government. However, I suppose now that it is going on in the US, authorities realized in 1983 or thereabout that they are not dealing with the exact guys, however, in reality do not comprehend what to do about it. The Greys are very energetic in human abductions, genetic experiments, monitoring human beings through implants, thought controlling, cloning, and introduction of hybrid humans. These make contributions to systematic international troubles such as people traumatized through abduction experiences, genetically modified humans, implants for monitoring humans, and an overly passive populace due to the hypnotic thought controlling program. Type 2. Little green men. Another frequent kind of alien is the little green guys that have been suggested to have been sighted by way of one-of-a-kind humans in one-of-the-kind places. These sorts of ETs are humanoid creatures with the greenish pores and skin shade, and their bodies are devoid of any hair. Some of the little green guys have been stated to have antennas on their heads, which are a whole lot larger than an everyday human head. Type 3. Nautic aliens. One of the many human space colonies spawned by the Sirens were eventually established on planets in the regal solar system in the Orion constellation. At some point in this history, Rigel with its nautic population presumably underwent a destructive civil war and was taken over by Greys. According to George Andrews, a nautic from the star system of Procyon, Kyla revealed much information about the Regalians, Procyons, and Greys to a human contactee, whose information was consistent with other sources and Andreas concluded was credible. The contactee described Kyla as follows. Kyla looked like a tall, handsome human, slender but masculine yet ethereal. He appeared either naturally or artificially to have black around his eyes, almost like coal. His face was close to exquisite but definitely masculine. He had a gaunt face with high cheekbones and piercing cobalt blue eyes. He had fine blonde hair that was almost shoulder length. He had a muscular neck. His skin was pale flesh color with a whitish overtone. It is hard to gauge his exact height because of the circumstances under which our encounter occurred, but it was somewhere between 6 and 7 feet. Andrews writes about the history of Rigel as revealed by Kyla to the contactee. The ancestors of the short greys were once tall blondes. The Great War took place. Before the Great War, Rigel was a vast empire which had been the source of most galactic seeding. All Rigelians were tall blondes. A colony had already been established on Procyon. The Great War was a civil war of Rigelians versus Rigelians and lasted the equivalent of 3 Earth centuries. A group of Rigelians who realized that the Great War was about to break out took off for the Procyon colony in crude, clandestinely built ships. They were the only Rigelians to escape the cataclysmic devastation. All those who had remained on Rigel were transformed into short greys. It appears that Rigel underwent a planet-wide nuclear war and environmental collapse that led to life in underground shelters. It is very unlikely that the transformation of Nordic Rigelians involved them becoming short greys, whose genetic material is generally accepted as the inferior to human races such as the Nordics. The genetic mutation process would have taken much longer than the 3 centuries mentioned. It is more likely that the surviving Rigelian Nordics were incorporated into a planet-wide genetic hybridization program by short greys from a star system such as Zeta Reticulum, who has secretly infiltrated and undermined Rigel prior or during the Great War on Rigel. The short greys most likely succeeded in genetically engineering the tall greys, using genetic material from the Nordic survivors who were too weak to resist the grey hybridization agenda. These Rigelian tall greys subsequently play a key role in diplomatic initiatives by the greys and serving as a genetic model for new human-grey hybrid races that allegedly represent the best of both species. Type 4. Pleiadian aliens. The aliens of the Pleiadian kind are characterized by means of spherical faces and tall parent, and the relaxation of the facades are smooth, however detailed. The common look of the Pleiadians is a very fantastic one, and though they do no longer have hair usually, however, if any individual has any hair on the heads, the hair is blonde colored. These aliens are recognized to be very mild and peace-loving with the aid of nature. Type 5. Andromedan aliens. Those ETs from the Andromeda are additionally described with the aid of Alex Collier as having been direct descendants of the Sirens who killed some situation when first leaving the Lyran device due to predatory extraterrestrial races, however, ultimately settled in the Andromeda constellation in the superstar machine. Zente. Collier describes the nature of the Andromedans as follows. Everything that they create technologically is used for the development of their race. It is for instructional functions only, but it can be used in defense. No, They do now not have a military per se, they are scientists. What they do is ship their teens to college somewhere from 150 to 200 years in our linear time. They educate their college students all of the arts and sciences. They are actually masters at everything. Then at the point they have the desire in what it is they desire to do, and they can exchange their minds whenever and do something else. So they are given all the tools. Everything is for education, nothing is for distraction. They would by no means conceive of developing TV as a distraction. Never. Everything is to assist them evolve, and their science can be used for protecting functions, primarily the holographic stuff. The most massive function of the Andromedans is that they are instrumental in the Andromeda Council, which is a grouping of about 140 celebrity structures who deliberate upon Earth. In a 1997 interview, Collier described the Council's deliberations as follows. Now in our galaxy there are many councils. I do not understand the whole lot about all these councils. However, I do understand about the Andromedan Council, which is a team of beings from 139 distinctive big name structures that come collectively and talk about what is going on in the galaxy. It is no longer a political body. What they have been lately discussing is the tyranny in our future 357 years from now, due to the fact that influence everybody. Apparently what they have done via time travel is that they have been in a position to determine out the place the massive shift in electricity occurred that motivates the tyranny 357 years in our future. They have traced it return to our photovoltaic system, and they have been capable to in addition song it to down to Earth, Earth's moon and Mars, those three places. The very first assembly the Andromedan Council had used to be figure out whether or not or how not to at once intervene with what was once going on here. According to Morney, there have been solely 78 structures that met this first time. Of these 78, simply brief of half of determined that they desired nothing to do with us at all, regardless of the problem. I assume it is actually vital that you recognize why they desire nothing to do with us. We are speaking about big name structures that are thousands and thousands of miles years away from us, even some who have in no way met us. They simply knew the vibration of the planet mirrored those on it. The motives why they desire nothing to do with us is that from their perspective, Earth human beings do not appreciate themselves, every different or the planet. What perchance can be the price of Earth humans? Fortunately, the majority of the council gave the opinion that due to the fact Earth has been manipulated for over 5,700 years, that we deserve the possibility to show ourselves, to at least have a shot at proving the different phase of the council wrong. Another contactee who mentions the Andromedans is Adrian, who was once drastically interviewed with the aid of researcher Sean David Morton and observed to be credible. Adrian's testimony used to be supported by means of tremendous photos, movie and witness testimonies. According to Adrian, the Andromedans play a necessary function in forming councils that deliberate on Earth, future thereby independently confirming Collier's testimony. The Andromedans are one of the foremost ET races most accountable for crop circles. He argues that the crop circles are meant each to encourage people with the opportunity of ET communications and to warn poor ETs of the penalties of their moves to manage and manipulate humanity. The Andromedans' chief recreation seems to be facilitating selections of the galactic neighborhood in dealing with tough issues such as the cutting-edge Earth situation, progressive techniques for resolving conflict, the schooling of childhood, and inspiring humanity with the probabilities of ET contact. The international options they promote consist of supporting the increase of psychic crystal rainbow children, peace education, exposing elite manipulation, advertising extended world governance and diplomacy, and hostile elites resolution. Type 6. Reptilian aliens. Another outstanding ET race in the crew is described with the aid of Dean as humanoids with reptilian traits that are 6 to 8 feet tall. Reptilian ET races have been described to be each native to Earth and additionally from different big name systems. R.A. Boole has significantly analyzed a range of ancient sources and argued that there is adequate proof to help the conclusion that an historical ET race of reptilians inhabited the Earth and performed a position in the introduction of humanity. According to Thomas Costello, A former protection authentic at Dulce, a relatively categorized underground facility involving a range of ET races cooperating with a quantity of US countrywide safety corporations and corporations. Reptilians indigenous to Earth work aspect by way of aspect with people and different ET races. Some reptoids are native to this planet. The ruling caste of aliens are reptilians. They had been an historic race on Earth, residing underground. Reptoids rightly think about themselves native Terrans. Perhaps they are the ones who have named the fallen angels. Perhaps not. Either way, we are the squatters on Earth. Since I was once the senior security technician at the base, I had to talk with them on a each-day basis. If there have been any issues that worried protection or video cameras, I was once the one they called. It was once the reptilian working caste that normally did the bodily labor in the decreased tires at Dulce. According to Costello, the decreased degree of Dulce worried full-size human rights abuses on captive civilians by means of joint ET human assignment leaders. William Hamilton, a nicely revered UFO researcher, researched each the Dulce space facility and Thomas Costello's claims and credibility and determined them to be especially plausible. It might also be unpalatable to digest or agree with Thomas's theory. In fact, it looks like phase of a residing nightmare. There is a proof that some unusual does go on the Dulce. Does Thomas have the answer? There can also be a horrible fact hidden at the back of the preserving with phenomena of UFO sightings, abductions and animal mutilations. Our authorities' brain groups have had an ongoing watchful eye on all UFO things to do for many years now. This wonderful phenomenon ought to have an exquisite explanation. We may additionally be solely one outpost in a sizable interstellar empire. In addition to Hamilton's conclusion about Costello's claims and credibility, I have written a full-time document of the Dulce base and discovered the proof is very steady with Costello's claim regarding human rights violations involving a range of ETs, US countrywide protection agencies and corporations. Linda Moulton Ho, an investigative journalist and UFO researcher, interviewed a contactee or abductee with the aid of the identifier of Jim Sparks, who claims to have met with a wide variety of reptilians indigenous to Earth. According to Sparks, indigenous Earth-based totally reptilians have their very own special way of life and have interacted with humanity for millennia, and each assisted humanity and used it as a resource. Sparks used to be informed by way of the reptilians that they have reached a wide variety of secret agreements with countrywide governments. Sparks' claims are very regular with the trip of some other contactee who claims to have met with a human reptilian. Lacerta had interviewed her on a wide variety of events and allotted the interviews as the Lacerta files. According to Lacerta, reptilians who have advanced on Earth are awesome to off-world reptilians who periodically go to the Earth. While there is some debate over the credibility of Ole K, the testimony is coherent and steady with Sparks and different lookup on the reptilian species, and well worth thinking about the higher apprehend reptilian activities. According to Lacerta, the reptilians' disposition toward humanity is cautious considering the fact that they view human beings as a primitive species that is the property of different ET races that seeded the planet. The Earth-based totally reptilians, in accordance to Sparks, harvest people in a way that does now not task the human presence on the planet. This suggests that the reptilians are following agreements upon them through extra effective off-world extraterrestrial races stated through Lacerta. In sum, in accordance to the whistleblower and contactee stories mentioned as a result far, it can be concluded that the indigenous Earth-based totally reptilians are worried in things to do such as manipulating human elites and monetary institutions, influencing spiritual faith systems, militarism, and altering the records of human civilization. The systemic world troubles, the reptilians make a contribution to encompass, convert human rights abuses, elite corruption and domination, manipulate the media and corporations, divisive spiritual dogma, historic amnesia, and a subculture of violence. Type 8. Sirens aliens. In addition to the above ETs, there are a number of human-looking ETs from Sirius B, which is part of a binary star system. Alex Collier describes ETs from Sirius B as follows. The cultures around Sirius B have a very controlling vibration. Some of the humans are red, beach, and black-skinned. The planets around Sirius B are very arid and generally occupied by reptilian and aquatic type beings. The society is more obsessed with political thought patterns instead of spiritual attributes. Amazingly, an African tribe called the Dogon had an intricate understanding of the elliptical orbit of Sirius B around the main star, Sirius A. This knowledge was apparently given to their ancestors by advanced ETs from the Sirius star system. The Dogon described the Sirens as amphibians from a planet around Sirius B, which is consistent with Collier occupied by reptilian and aquatic type beings. The racial characteristics of the human from Sirius B suggest that these are descendants from the star system Vega, which will be described later. Preston Nichols claims to be a whistleblower who participated in a clandestine project at Montauk that involved a number of ET groups. An independent investigator from Nicholas to be a very reliable and solid witness, and that for myself, his information checked out across the board right down the line, to the extent that it was at all possible to verify particular information. The humans from Sirius B, according Nichols played a role in providing exotic technologies such as time interdimensional travel to clandestine government agencies involved in both the Philadelphia experiment and Montauk project. In conclusion, this human ET group from Sirius A is mainly active in technology exchange programs that have assisted the government in the acquisition of various technologies that have had military applications. This appears to be aimed at promoting military cooperation to potential ET threats against Earth, both through subversion and external intervention. The global problems that humanoids from Sirius B have contributed to include covert weapons research, use of exotic technologies, and abuse of civilians used in the time travel experiments. Type 9 Anunaki aliens. Finally, there is reported to be a race of giant humanoids who have played a role in seeding the Earth with humans and who periodically return to Earth to determine how effectively Earth's resources have been utilized by humanity and those ET races playing a role in managing humanity. These are described by the Sumerians as the Anunaki from the world Nibiru in the extensive cuneiform text translated by Zachariah Sitchin. These giant humanoids apparently form the chief founding ET race that were the gods described in ancient mythologies and religions. According to the accounts of Sumerians, the Anunnaki chief god is Anu, and the pantheon of Anunnaki, as described by Sitchin, form key figures in the hierarchy that secretly oversee management of humanity and the planet Nibiru, which periodically returns to the vicinity of Earth. According to Alex Collier, this is how the Anunnaki or Nibiruans originated as a species. A very long time ago, colonies on Sirius B and the Orion group were having trouble with each other. In order to bring peace, there was a marriage between members of each group. The women came from the Orion group, where the hierarchy includes the queen, the matriarchal paradigm. The male was from Sirius B. Both members were considered royalty of their respective line. When these two came together in marriage, their offspring had the genetics from both lines. Because of these genetics, the new race that was created was given the name Nibiru, which I am told by Moroni in the Orion tongue means divided amongst two. This is who they literally are, a cross between those from Sirius B and race from the Orion system. They formed a new tribe, which has continued to flourish for at least hundreds of thousands of years, so they are a tribe that has become a race. It appears that the Anunnaki mode of operation is to leave primitive species such as humanity to flourish on the planets, while more advanced races such as the Reptilians form a kind of planetary management team to harvest humanity in a way that serves the long-term interest of the Anunnaki, who return periodically to assess their human experiments. It therefore appears that the Anunnaki form a kind and regulatory agent to ensure that the Earth's resources and humanity in general are responsibly managed. The Anunnaki have a relationship with Earth-based reptilians based on whatever historical agreements they reached over humanity will be managed. It is also likely that the Anunnaki have some form of agreement with the Draconians over how the latter intervene in worlds where the Anunnaki have established human experiments. Finally, it is also likely that some numbers of the Anunnaki have remained secretly on Earth and therefore have played a role in the creation of elite human organizations to manage human affairs. These agreements or secret control of human elite groups indirectly make the Anunnaki a part of the military, industrial, extraterrestrial complex. According to Sergeant Dean, the Anunnaki are major players in the human affairs, and this is likely to become more significant as their home planet Nibiru returns to the vicinity of Earth. It is the apparent return of the Anunnaki that appears to be a wild card that concerns national security agencies that are unaware of how this race of ETs will impact on global humanity and the military-industrial extraterrestrial complex that has been created to manage ET affairs. The main activities of the Anunnaki are to influence the long-term human evolution through elite groups, systems and institutions, and by influencing human consciousness. They appear to be in competition with the Draconians for control of Earth. The main global problems they contribute to include elite domination, religious fundamentalism, a patriarchal global structure, and a culture of violence. Type 10. Arcturian aliens. The final extraterrestrial race to be examined due to their significance are the Arcturians, who are described as once having seeded the Earth with their members and presumably peacefully coexisted with their own races. According to Andrews, in antiquity this planet was divided into sectors among 4 different groups: blondes, greys, large lizard-like beings from the Capella system, and beings from the Arcturus system. Andrews goes on to describe the Arcturians as currently playing an observer role in the current battle between extraterrestrial groups over Earth and her population. Collier describes the Arcturians as also being one of the races interacting with the Earth, and they are trying to help. According to the contactee, Adrian, the Arcturians are the ET race most responsible for the crop circles. He argues that the crop circles are intended both to inspire humans with the possibility of ET communications and to warn negative ETs of the consequences of their actions to control and manipulate humanity. A more detailed description of the Arcturians is given by Collier. This group of beings settle in the constellation of Arcturus. These races of humanity are very private, and for very specific reasons do they get involved in Earth. They think of themselves as healers. They carry a strong pride of technology in the arts of physical healing and emotional and spiritual bodies. They have been known to intervene in the ancient past to help resolve very serious conflicts in our era of the universe by sharing their unique ability to show others how to integrate their belief system and feelings to resolve conflict. They can be very silent and can and will keep very much to themselves. They as a group have done much to help raise the overall levels of consciousness in our universe. Most information on the Arcturians comes from those claiming to have telepathically communicated with them. For example, Dr. Norma Milanovic, in her book We, the Arcturians, describe her communication with the Arcturians through a form of computer-aided automatic writing. She claims the Arcturians are here to assist Earth as it enters a new age of spirituality. They cannot interfere with the free will of decision-making process of any earthling, but are here to educate and help raise the vibrations of all those who choose to journey to the new dimension the Earth is entering. The Arcturians are described as having a highly developed spiritual culture and technological sophistication that gives them great influence in the galaxy. Another individual who telepathically communicates with the Arcturians claims they have the following mission on Earth. The Arcturians are the overall guides or administrators of the contact experience. They have a desire generally to see this go well, to see you learn as much as possible by this process and to assist you in any way they can. However, their affinity is to the future of the planet as a whole, and they tend to have a hands-off approach as much as possible. They will tend to do the least amount of work for the greatest effect. You will find them to be efficient and quite creative in this. They may be useful to you in learning how to play, how to wait for the right timing, and how to do very few important things that you must do to succeed. The Arcturians' main activity therefore appears to be one of the integrating spiritual values with advanced technologies, in providing strategic advice in transforming planetary systems and inspiring humanity with the possibilities of ET contact. The global solutions the Arcturians contribute to include transparent and accountable global governance, integrating global financial, political, and societal systems, helping humanity coordinate effectively with all ET races, and diplomacy and conflict resolution.
If you enjoy this video and want to see more like it, please consider subscribing to us and hitting the like button. Feel free to write a comment below and suggest which theory you want to see next. If you'd like to further support this channel, please consider joining. Our membership link will be found in the description box below. We appreciate your support, and as always, thanks for watching.